Hello students, I'm Catherine Victoria from the Department of Psychology. Today we are going to have a discussion on developmental psychology. Developmental psychology is a very interesting study which studies from a person's changes from the time a person is born, before the birth itself, and throughout the childhood, adolescence, adulthood and later years till the death. What are the changes that happens in a human being, what are the physical changes, cognitive changes, social, emotional changes, how people socialize with each other, why do boys tend to form groups with their own same sex when they are at teenage. So how does a child first learn to develop language skills. So it is a very interesting subject. Okay, so how do humans change from each developmental period, from being a baby to a toddler to a early childhood, middle childhood, like that. Okay, so what are the changes that are happening in their mind, how they begin to socially develop. Okay, initially they don't have much friends, their playmate is usually their sibling, but then when they go to school they form friendship with their own classmates, and soon they start developing friendship with the opposite gender, then they start romantic attraction. So it's a subject which is has a lot of scope, and which we can relate with our own life. Okay, so it is knowing the process and the reasons for development. Okay, so as teachers, as psychologists, or as people involved in management positions like principals or teachers, we need to know why students are behaving in this way. And so for teachers, when they are teaching a particular age group, say 3 years old, 4-5 year old student, we need to know what can they understand, how to teach them. So when we study the developmental stages and what are they thinking at this stage, how will their reasoning be, it helps us to modify our teaching technique to their level of knowledge. Okay, so when a child, if you see a small child, they can think from only their perspective. If you give them a toy in front of them and ask them what do you see in the toy, they tell what only they can see. They won't be able to take the perspective of another person. um, Whereas if you take an adolescent, they will tell what is in front of them, what is that they are not visible. If the object is placed in front of them, they will be able to tell what is in front of them, what is behind them, how they will be able to predict where the object is moving, what is the speed and everything. But for a child, but for a small child of 5 year old, it will only have thinking for what it sees. Okay, it won't be able to see other person's perspectives. Okay, so in developmental psychology, it's usually we are studying from before birth, as soon as a child is conceived, how it is growing prenatally. Okay, what makes the child to develop well. Okay, it depends on maternal nutrition and the mother's conditions, outside conditions, and the child's genetic thing also influences its development. Okay, so why we study kids, it's because they are simpler to understand, they're not much complicated like adults who have different taste. Okay, so then so when we say welfare measures for children, policy framing, small children, their attention span is very less. Okay, and beating children, harsh corporal punishment that is inflicted on children, it causes psychological damage in the child, and later they tend to become more abusive when they become adults towards other small people. So when we understand when we understand the theory behind developmental psychology, we can frame policies that help for the development of students. Okay, so we say we bring compulsory PT classes for students. Why is it brought? Because in developmental psychology we study that exercise helps the moods of the children, it helps in their motor development, it helps them to socialize with other children. It helps in their reasoning, language skills, it helps them in their physical development. So that's why the policy of making PT classes is becoming a must. Okay, and we see that many children in India are having a lot of health related issues. They are dwarf, or they are developing health related conditions because they are coming from a poor background. Their mother is not getting sufficient nutrition, and child is also not getting anything. So we understand how malnutrition can affect the physical growth of the child, the mental growth of the child, how they will be more irritable, their learning span is decreased, their brain size is decreased, their attention capacity is all reduced, and they'll be irritable. They tend to be more abusive because they're not getting their adequate nutrition. That's why the government has brought Anganwadi system and so many morning midday meal schemes to ensure that children get sufficient nutrition, so that they can be more when they grow up, they can be more productive adults and useful for the citizen, useful for the country. So there are a lot of practical applications for all age groups, from babyhood to later or older adults. Okay, next topic. So in this we'll see some themes of development. Okay, so the first thing is description versus process. Okay, so in description we describe how the changes are happening. We describe say when a child is learning to speak, okay, how the language process develops. So they say that in the first 6 months a baby can learn any number of languages, at least 10 languages if the child is exposed to such things. Okay, but after 10 years they will after 10 months of the baby is more tuned to learn the native language. So okay, so if you say the description, initially the baby doesn't talk the language, so they will be babbling some words. Slowly they will start telling the only 2 letters from their thing. Say if you're asking them something, they'll just tell the starting words alone. Kodai means that thing, simple 2 words only. Okay, then they will start telling one full sentence, amma, appa, that's word. Then they will be trying to string 2 more words, mother, water, okay, 2 words together. Like that, after 3 words, then a sentence, then they will be able to describe very clearly. Okay, how it is description versus the process. Okay, process is it's a more detailed procedure of what is happening in the starting stage and what are influencing it, and how the consequence of this. So so in developmental psychology we study how a baby is formed from the fertilized egg. It is going to 2-cell stage, 4-cell stage, 8-cell stage, and each stage how what are the changes happening. So if you see the fetus 6 weeks, it is having a primitive head, it is having a spinal cord, its facial features are slightly developed, its heart is beating well at 4 weeks. Okay, and at fetus 10 weeks you can see small limbs, and the toes are kind of erupting. By 16 weeks almost the fetus is you can see the human form of it. Okay, so this is description versus process. Okay, so what in process we learn what are the factors affecting the development of a baby. If the mother is not eating well, if the mother is sick during a particular stage of pregnancy, it can affect the growth of the baby. Say she has contracted a virus, suddenly it can cause a change in the heart, it can cause a congenital heart defects. Okay, so here we study description versus process. Description, you're describing something. The process is what is happening at first, what is happening in the middle stage, and what will be the next thing, what are the interacting forces in between. Next thing is, so when we study developmental psychology, it is versus biological versus environmental influences. So all human beings are influenced by both things. Biologically, we are taking a lot of things from our parents through the DNA. We have their facial features, we have their what kind of diseases affect them. We also tend to have similar diseases. Our tastes and our habits all reflect our parents and genetical things. Okay, so our physical appearance, our biological influence are the diseases, and all things are due to biological and nature versus the environmental influences. Okay, a child is only not influenced by what she has gained from her parents. She's also influenced by her environment, the kind of school she goes to, the college she goes to, the kind of neighborhood in which she is raised, the kind of friends she has determines what her career will be, what her intelligence will be, what her language capacities will be. Okay, so a human is both determined by both nature and nurture. So even if we have lack in nature, say we are not having good food and good place to live, but if our nurture, say we are being raised up in good schools, nurturing environments who care for us, so one will tend to balance each other, and the child can outgrow some of the bad influences in the life. Say a child is drug addicted, she's coming from a family where drug addiction is so prevalent, but if the nurturing environment, she got good teachers, she got a good community who is supporting her, who is supporting in her studies, finances and everything, the child will not go back into drug addiction. So humans are both influenced by either both biological versus environmental influences. Okay, next thing is passive versus active child. Okay, some children are generally active in nature, they tend to explore the environment, they are very curious, they are very naughty. But some children tend to be silent, they don't react much, they don't respond much to any of the changes in their environment. Okay, so the question is, are children the product of their circumstances, or do they modify it as active agents in their social environment? Okay, so it is actually an interaction. Okay, children tend to get dull because of their environment, and even a dull child can be made into an active child provided she is exposed to stimulated learning environment. Okay, so it is an interaction, actually speaking. Even passive children can be made into an active child can be made into a silent child. It depends on the environment in which she is raised. But there are certain inborn things among the child which makes them to be passive in general, and certain things are kind of inborn. A passive child tends to be the same from their childhood to their adulthood, teenagers, everything. But if their circumstances are good, they can tend to become more active. Next thing is continuity versus discontinuity. So in continuity is when we see developmental stages as growing from each one after the another. Okay, so some psychologists like Freud and Jean Piaget, okay, they tell it is as discrete steps. That is, one stage has to go, and then when that stage is complete, say, so Piaget's stages of cognitive development talks about 4 things: sensory motor stage, pre-operational stage, concrete operational stage, formal operational stage. Okay, so he talks about 4 stages, and he says that only in that particular stage the child will be in learning in certain ways, and it won't be carried to the next stage. Okay, so a sensory motor child, the child is learning through the sensations and through the 5 senses and through touching and motor. Okay, okay, he says that what happens in one stage will not get carried to the next stage. Okay, so in pre-operational stage, 2 to 7 years, concrete operational stage. Okay, so if you see concrete operational stage, they're giving a child of water water of same quantity, but in one tumbler it is very small and large wide base, in another the same quantity but it is in a slim and tall tumbler. The child is trying to is asked the question whether the quantity in both the tumbler is the same or not. Okay, so in concrete operational stage, the child comes to learn that Even though because of the change in the shape of the tumblers, only the water level is small or high. It's on, even though the child will come to know that the quantity is the same, the change in the height of the water is because of the change in the shape of the tumbler. Okay, in formal operational stage, the child can think abstractly, the child can predict, the child can tell how far is a particular galaxy from from the earth, or how far the Pluto is from the earth. The child can predict, the child can analyze, the child can evaluate. It is in a more higher stage of learning compared to all the previous stages. So in descriptive steps they think that they are all different steps. It won't merge on each other. Okay. Whereas in continuous steps like Albert Bandura's theory, it tells that for the child, one step's development will affect the other stage. If the child hasn't learned the first stage properly, then the child's second stage and third stage, everything will be affected. Okay, continuous means it's slowly building on each stage. If, okay, say we are affected at one particular stage, the child won't be able to go on to the next stage of learning properly. Okay, that is continuity versus discontinuity. Okay, so Erik Erikson also talks about psychosocial changes. Okay, he talks about many stages. Okay, in the first stage is trust versus mistrust of babies. So when they are 0 to 2 years, if their mother and their parents were very kind and loving, the child tends to form a positive view of the world and tends to trust other people. But if the mother and the other adults were not responsive to the child, they never looked the child when the child was crying or fussy, or when the child wet their pants, no one responded to them, or when the child was crying, no one pacified them, the child tend to have a negative view and won't trust most adults. So from Erik Erikson's theory on the stage of trust versus mistrust, we can clearly tell that if you have a strong attachment with your primary caregivers like your mother, father or grandparent, then you will tend to have a strong romantic relationship. You will tend to have a strong friendships with your colleagues and with your classmates. Next topic, we'll see early versus later experience. Okay, in some psychologists think that early experiences in life will tend to have a huge impact on our life. Say if you're the earlier thing that I told is if a child had a very poor attachment style with their primary caregiver like their mother, they will always don't form much friendship. They won't trust other adults very easily. They tend to have problems in their romantic relationship because their early experience with their mother itself was not secure. The mother was not responsive whenever the baby cried. She was inconsistent. One day she responded, the other day she wasn't reactive much to her baby's cry. Okay, in later experiences when we say that as we grow up, certain experiences in life, say we saw the death of a loved one, or we saw our family had a major crisis such that our financial crisis, or we had to move to a different place, or our father was arrested for some unfortunately, so that can impact a child. You know, growing up without a father will cause the child to become, become criminal. The research says that children growing up without father tend to have a lot of criminal activities later in their life. They tend to become drug addicts. And children growing up without mothers don't know how, in their later years, they don't know how to be more emotionally matured because they didn't get the emotional love and care from their mother. So then as they grow up, they tend to have lack in those emotional experiences, emotional maturity, and they tend to socialize less. Okay, so early experiences versus later experience. What happened in our early years tend to affect us in a really serious way. If say a child was sexually abused in a small age, the child at a later age will not tend to trust anybody, will not form romantic relationship, etc. Okay, later experiences also will impact us. Next thing is situational influences versus individual characteristics. Situational influences is say you are being raised in a home where TV is always there, and your family is watching a lot of aggressive films, rowdy, a lot of aggressive based rowdy acts, and so many sports that are very aggressive like boxing and everything. So the child who tend to view all these things, who often keeps watching these stuffs on TV, tend to be more aggressive in compared to other children who's not viewing any TV at all, or who is watching content which is more softer in nature. So we can say that situational influences impact us a lot. Where we are growing up, whether we are growing up in a slum or whether we are growing up in an affluent, rich neighborhood, or we are growing up in a surrounding with nature, all that influences us in some ways. Children who are coming from the countryside tend to be more soft, more socializing, whereas city bred children tend to be more intelligent, but they tend to have they don't have much socializing skills because they are being raised up in four walls. Okay, individual versus individual characteristics. What is individual characteristics? Individual characteristics are those that we are innately born. Some people are more silent, some people are very talkative, some people are moody, some people are very emotionally stable. Some people tend to do their work properly. They set schedules for them. They follow according to the timetable. Whereas some people do their work haphazardly. You give them a work tomorrow for them to submit. They will do random works randomly. They will take from some net and they'll submit. Okay, so individual characteristics are that which we are having, we are born with, and it is very hard for us to change. Okay, so do children behave the same at all places or they differ? Okay, so it is interactionist perspective. Okay, so children tend to behave very calm and quiet in their classrooms, whereas in their families they tend to be very talkative and very cruel. Okay, so we tend to change our thing based on this. Our behavior is either the impact of situations, like if we are whether in the classroom or in our own home, or our own individual characteristics, like sometimes the child is silent at both places because the child is of such personality. Okay, and we tend to choose the environments we like. Okay, a child who is very socializing wants to go to pub, restaurant, to go to amusement park, whereas a child who is very silent, who loves to be by themselves, will look for comfort by reading books, etc. Next thing is cultural universals versus cultural relativism. Universal means there are certain things common across all cultures. Children of a particular age will behave the same way. That is cultural universals. Everywhere at a certain age people tend to get married, like around 20 to 30s. That is cultural universal. Cultural relativism is in certain cultures certain things happen. Okay, in certain cultures child laborers are there. Okay, at 7 years they go to their own family agricultural lands and they start working. In some cultures, in America, that 18 years they start going for part-time jobs. They start moving away from their family homes in search of jobs and education. They can decide where they want to study, what they want to do in life. Whereas in our culture, parents force them to go to school, then to college, then to get married. Okay, so cultural universals is the things that are common across all cultures. Children of every age, of a particular age, tend to walk at 1 year across all cultures. A baby starts walking. That is cultural universal. Cultural relativism is, in certain cultures, children are not allowed to walk. They're always swaddled in clothing because they live in risky places where there can be animal attacks. Okay, and therefore the child is swaddled in clothing. Okay, but yet the child will be able to walk at a particular stage. So the children who are swaddled in clothing tend to walk at a later age, say 1 year, 1 month, 1 year, 2 years. Okay, next thing is, eighth point is status of secular trends. So today the world is changing rapidly, and that is influencing us so much. Earlier, men only went for work, and the child rearing was the work of women. But today, since women are coming to work, there are many single families, and there are children being raised by single mothers and women and working mothers, um, um, who uh, who have to provide for their child, and therefore the child is unable to get the attention and love from their parents, from their mothers, because they're separated from their mother for a very long time. Today we see divorce rates are increasing, there is unemployment. Okay, to status of secular trends is, what are the changes that are happening in the world right now. Women coming to the workforce, the increase in um, divorce in marriages, the increase in same-sex marriages. That when children born in same-sex marriages, what happens, and all those things we study. Next thing is basic research versus application of knowledge. So basic research, you try to understand a topic in detail. Okay, you are trying to get knowledge out of it. Okay, why what happens when a child is raised in a single parent home. That is basic research. You are trying to understand the development of the child's feelings, the level of IQ the child will be having, the emotional development of the child, what are the circumstances in which a mother is bringing up a child as a single parent. Then versus application of knowledge. So application of knowledge is, you're using that research knowledge in a classroom setting or in a home, and seeing whether that psychological principle is working out or not, whether it is a success or a failure. Understanding the facts, understanding what is the changes and how the child is growing, and trying to do applying it in some real life area, and trying to see whether there is a positive change or not. So theoretical perspectives on development is, we have behavioral perspectives and few other perspectives. Okay, behavioral perspective is, we are trying to understand what causes a behavior, how it is influenced. So classical conditioning versus operant conditioning. Classical conditioning is when a normal stimulus which doesn't have any reaction initially starts to cause a reaction in other persons. Okay, normally when a child comes to a class in their LKG or UKG, they don't stand to wish their teacher. But through classical conditioning, over the years, the child gets to learn that whenever the bell is ringing, the period gets over, the next teacher will come, so we have to stand up and wish. So the child is conditioned to behave in certain ways, because it has started to associate the bell ringing it has associated that to the class getting over, and expecting the next class and the next teacher, and therefore the bell will make the child alert that the next teacher can come anytime, and we have to stand up and wish. Okay, that is classical conditioning. Operant conditioning is, our behavior is tend to be influenced by what are the rewards and punishment that we are receiving. So operant conditioning, say we will tend to study better when we get rewards. Our parent is telling, you are doing a good job, or our teacher is giving us a star in our paper, or she's making us get appreciated from our classmates by getting a clap. So then we tend to study well. Say we got very less marks, our parents will scold us, we'll get poor marks, everyone will be telling that she's not doing well. So then we understand that If we are not studying well, we will tend to have negative views, and therefore that behavior of not studying will tend to get decreased. Next thing is social learning. Social learning is we learn a lot of behaviors by viewing others. If we see a classmate getting scolded by the teacher because she's talking with her classmate, we will understand that we should not talk in class. Many behaviors we learn by watching others. That is social learning theory. Next thing is psychodynamic perspective of Freud's stages of psychosexual development, Erikson's 8 stages of psychosocial development. Okay, so in this they talk of district steps. Okay, so Freud's stages, okay, of psychosexual, he talks about where the child is very interested in oral pleasure. Okay, oral stage, anal stage, different stages. Okay, so in psychodynamic perspective it was primarily brought by Freud, and Freud always relates every behavior to our childhood. So Freud tells that if an adult is too much interested in eating, drinking and all that, he tells that the child is fixated in oral stage. Okay, when a child is still breastfeeding from the mother, the child is having oral pressure, and that's why the person hasn't moved on to the next stages. And that's why so when we are having a fixation at a particular stage, it's hard for the person to come out from that stage. Okay, so if fixation happens, okay, so if the parents were very strict and harsh during the potty training of the child, when the child grows up, the child will tend to be very perfectionist. Every place has to be clean, there should not be any dirt, they want to be very perfect. If the parents were very careless when they were potty training, you can do whatever you want, I'm not going to beat you, I'm not going to scold you, the child tend to be very careless. When they grow up, they tend to have rooms that are very messy and dirty, and they're not bothered about it. So psychodynamic perspectives tell that every behavior has its origination in childhood. How we were impacted in the childhood tends to affect our future behaviors. Next thing is ethological perspective. Some of our behaviors we tend to follow some of our ancestors according to Darwin's theory. So humans and monkeys have a lot of similar behaviors. Humans and monkeys tend to live in groups. When if someone of their family member passes away, all the monkeys tend to grieve in groups. Monkeys tend to have a lot of similarities to humans, like they share the same similar blood types of us, and they have the similar diseases. Their biological makeup is similar to us. So in ethological perspective, we see the relationship between human behaviors and animal behaviors. Okay, so what causes, how has our behavior evolved over the time? Okay, so what are the causes and the functions related to it? Okay, so when we are studying animal behavior, we have to see them in their natural habitat. We have to see them in their zoo or wildlife sanctuary to see their natural behavior, and to see how it impacts, how much of human behavior is correlating or finding similarity with animal behavior. Okay, so if you see this behavior, okay, a mother chimpanzee looking at the face of a baby chimpanzee, you can see that it is similar to human species also. Okay, so then Konrad Lorenz talks about how there are species specific behavior. So there are certain behaviors only specific to certain animals. If you see the dog urinating in its own territory, it indicates that this is my territory. If you come into my territory, I will chase you, I will hit you, something. Okay, so or dolphins playing in the water, or monkeys hanging from a tree. tree, or cat cleaning its own furs. Okay, they say, okay, so these cat is the most cleanest animal. So okay, so they say there are certain behaviors particular to a certain species. Okay, so this is ecological perspective. Okay, so in ecological perspective we have microsystem, mesosystem, exosystem, macrosystem and chronosystem. Microsystem is the most smallest thing. Okay, it includes our family, our workplace, you know, our school friends, etc. In microsystem we have regular contact. We come in contact with them often. We are closely related to them either by blood or we share the same workplaces, etc. So you see a family, child, daycare center, church, synagogue, temple, neighborhood play area, school. We often in school we tend to meet our friends regularly and we know what is happening in them. That is microsystem. Mesosystem is something that is in between the microsystem and the macro system. Okay, it includes the neighbors, the workplace, the institution that we are studying in, the college we are studying in. So microsystem is our classmates or our schoolmates or our family. Mesosystem is where we are meeting them. It could be in a neighborhood, it could be in the school, it could be in a relative system. And exosystem is something, the extended family, okay, the friends, etc. Okay, those that are not directly impacting us, but those that tend to have an impact on us. Okay, so chronosystem is when we talk in time period, changes in person or environment over time. Okay, so when we were in child, we were playing outside. We didn't have smartphones or computers, and therefore our lifestyle was very different. But in 2010, 2006, the introduction of basic phones came. Then the introduction of Facebook and so on came. So people started moving from socializing with their playmates in the outside of their home. Now people have started socializing in social medias. So how various time periods have changed our lifestyles and our behavior. Earlier we all used to go shopping directly to the places, but today many do online shopping. Okay, because of the changes in time and etc. People have modified their behaviors and etc. in various ways. Earlier we all used to go to the library to see the books, to get notes from the library. But today we search Google for whatever things. So how time periods have changed our relationships and etc. Okay, today people don't go for arranged marriages. They find websites and apps to get their matches. Okay, so next thing is macro system. Macro system is the broad thing that are cultures, the government, okay, that is influencing our thing. Okay, because of the GST. GST was brought, and so people, even though they want to spend so much, they always think about the GST cost. Okay, the broad macro system are the bigger forces that are controlling our lifestyle, our behaviors, our everything. Okay, so although we all like to have different educational systems where we can homeschool our child, or we can teach the child what the child actually likes. Today's education system only focuses on particular subjects like physics, chemistry, mathematics, computer science. The child is not given the exposure to other different subjects, because our educational system is like that. Okay, the broader forces that are controlling us in some ways. The media, example is media, mass media, what type of dress you should wear, what type of food you are supposed to eat, everything. It is subtly it is influencing us. Okay, the laws today, homosexuality is allowed. You can have multiple partners. Today culture is changing. We are no longer following our own cultures. The Western culture has penetrated our lifestyles. So macro system are those broader things, like how the governments are, various governments are influencing various things. Okay, things that are beyond the control of a particular individual are macro system, like Indian governments, Indian culture, mass media, etc. Now we are coming to the last topic, that is lifespan's perspective. Okay, lifespan's perspective talks about how people change across their lifespan. Because of changes in the shift. Okay, in earlier times their parents would have given them everything, good education and good education, food and everything. But when due to certain changes in their life, okay, suddenly the father lost their job or mother passed away, those incidents will cause the child to have a different upbringing. No longer the child will get the good education and clothing and food and etc., because their family is going through a new phase. Okay, so here we talk about two things: normative events. Normative events are those things that happen to every individual: puberty, marriage, etc. Okay, these are things that happen to all humans. Non-normative events are those things that happen to few individuals. Okay, divorce, death of a brother or a parent, or accident where a person loses their part of a body. So these are non-normative events that happen to very few individuals. Cohort is every 10 years is a cohort. 1990 to 2000 is a cohort. 2000 to 2010 is a cohort. So if you see 1980s to 1990s children, they were all growing up. When they were kids, they used to play in the ground, they used to go to the rivers to play. They played in the natural habitats. But today you see children, their only playmate is their gadget. They're playing video games, they're watching YouTube. So children born from 2010 to 2020, they have similar life experiences. They came across the COVID, where they were switched from regular classes to online classes. So cohort people, so people every 10 years, say 2010 to 2020, they all have similar life experiences. They tend to have grow through similar experience. So you see that when they were born itself, they had smartphones. Their parents were using smartphones. Their schools gave them circulars in smartphones. But okay, so life all life changes from life periods from babyhood to adulthood, toddlerhood, childhood. Each life stage impacts a person so much. Okay, so in developmental psychology, if a person is behaving in certain ways, if you study this subject, you will know that why a person is behaving like this. Okay, because of certain things that happen to a person in a particular life stage, that's why the person is behaving like that. At childhood, if the child didn't get proper love and care from their mother, in the future the child is not going to trust their husband or their children or their colleagues, because at the early stages no one took care of them. Okay, so every life stage, whatever happens to a person, it tends to carry on to the next stage, and that will impact. So this subject is a very beautiful subject, and it can be learned by anyone, be it a school teacher, a principal, or any religious person. It is this subject is a lot of useful. We can help to understand why a person is behaving like this because of their life stage and etc. Thank you.